Good morning. This is Kevin Rice with Establishing the Kingdom. This is March 13th, 2015. Every day I get different correspondence from various people across the globe, different ministries, and a lot of them really touch your heart hearing about their efforts that they're putting forth toward ministry. And a lot of them feel that they're not accomplishing the purpose that God has put in their life because of limited resources and limited opportunities to minister, and that they feel they're ineffective. And a lot of times we neglect to understand that the call of God on our life is not to obtain what the world sees as the role of ministry, to be the apostle that stands up in front of a group of people and leads them. Sometimes the call of God is simply to be Christ to the people that God puts in our life daily. I know that I have stood in front of thousands of people and talked and delivered the message that God has given to me for those people. I've led worship, hundreds of worship services. I've played music for various choirs and bands, and I love doing that. I enjoy doing that. It's the gift that God has given me to do. But you don't do that every day. That's not something that's a daily ministry. That's an opportunity that God provides for us to worship Him in music and song. It's an opportunity that God gives us to deliver a message to a body of believers. But we're really called as ministers, each and every one of us, fellow servants together, to be Christ to the world around us. John 13:35 pretty much sums it up. By this shall men know that you are my disciples, if you have love one for another. Our true calling, our true ministry, each and every one of us daily, is to love one another, to love those people who are the children of God, whether they've been born into the kingdom or they're unborn children of God. Our purpose, our calling, our ministry is to love. And if we forget that or misplace our ministry into thinking that we need to accomplish our ministry by having a church service every week and being the leader of that church service, or taking the talents that God has given us and only focusing our efforts on those talents, we begin to fall in love with the ministry. And being in love with God's ministry is great, but that's not what we're called to do. That's not how men will know that we are His disciples. It's not that we spend all of our energy doing the things that we call church. It's that we love the people of the world. And if we ever catch a glimpse of the fact that our calling and our election is to be Christ to the world, to show forth the love of Christ to the people around us, then we'll be the most effective in our ministry for the kingdom. The world has given us a perception that the only true ministry and calling of God is to be a pastor. But there are many ministries in the body, and everybody has their own purpose, their own calling, their own area that they fulfill. And when we lose sight of what our giftings are, when we lose sight of the opportunities that God presents to us daily, and we fail to accomplish our daily task that God has placed before us, we fail to ask for the Spirit to lead us and guide us into truth, or to direct us in the paths of righteousness, to put in front of us people that we can minister to. When we fail to see that, when we fail to grasp those opportunities of intimate relationship with our fellow man, there is nothing we can do in the venue of traditional church that will ever minister as effectively as a daily walk and a daily expression of the love of Christ to those that are around us. So my purpose today in coming to you is to encourage you and let you know that your measure as a minister, and each and every one of us are called to ministry. Each and every one of us is given an opportunity to minister to our fellow man. But our measure of ministry is not a curriculum vitae or a resume full of all the times that we've stood in front of a congregation, all the church services that we've led, all of the church buildings that we've planted, all of these things and accolades that the world sees as what justifies the call of a person. Our true measure as a minister of Christ is the lives that we have touched through the love that God has placed in us. I recall a lot of the old prophets in the Old Testament, and you read about them and you see the miraculous things that happened in their life. And for the most part, many of those men may have only had one event in their life that truly distinguished them as a prophet of God. And the rest of their life may not even be recorded. Like Jonah, for instance. Jonah, his message to Nineveh converted that whole city back to a relationship with God. Yet it was one message that he preached that did it. It was not his every Sunday morning service that he held in Nineveh. It was one message and one opportunity that God gave him and called him to perform that led to salvation for many. So when it feels like that we are not accomplishing what we feel within ourselves is the calling of God, sometimes we need to reevaluate our daily expression of love to those that are around us, and measure our relationship with God, our relationship with our fellow man, and see if we are measuring up to the full stature of Christ. Christ didn't preach a message every Sunday morning. He didn't have a major edifice that he went to and called a church. He ministered to the common people on the street, and he touched them with his love. We are called into the kingdom of God to be an expression of the love of Christ to the world around us. Let's never forget the power that worketh within us, and that power is expressed through our love to our fellow man. This has been Kevin Rice with Establishing the Kingdom. I look forward to seeing you again. Good evening.